Darren Rutler was born in 1970 and grew up in Texas. In the late 90s, she married Darren Rutler. A couple eventually settled in Rolwet, where they purchased a home, relatively new residence development by 1996. They had three sons: Davion, age 6, Damon, age 5, and Drake, an infant, at the time of the incident. Public records and testimony later present in court describe the family as outwardly active and social. Darren operated a small electronic business from the house. Darren was primarily a stay-at-home mother, financially and more. She carried a family activities and significant debt, including large mortgage and business-related loans. According to the testimony, the couple had discussed financial pressure in months before the incident. Although the extent and the seriousness of those concerns were disputed at trial, friends and family gave varying accounts of the family circumstance. Some described them as affectionate and engaged with their children. Others refers to their visible signs of financial strain, including overdue bills and discussions about refinancing. This element would later become a large part of this prosecution theory regarding the motive, though they were contested by the defense. On the night of June 15, 1996, the family followed what appeared to be normal routine. According to the testimony, Darren went upstairs with the infant Drake. Darren remained downstairs with Damon and Davion. The boys were watching television and eventually fell asleep in the family room. Darlene, which was downstairs on the sofa, shortly 2 a.m. on June 6, placed a 911 call. The recording call became a central piece of the investigative process. During the call, she reported that someone had entered their home and stabbed her and her children. She told the dispatcher that the suspect has fled through the garage. The police officer at the emergency response tunnel arrived within minutes. They found Devon and Damon critically injured. Darlene, who had been stabbed on the neck with other injuries, she was unconscious and unable to speak. Their children was transported to medical facility, but both were later pronounced unalive. Darren Rutland told the investigators that he was upstairs asleep and awakened by Darlene's screams. He reported that he has chased the unknown suspect towards the garage area and did not catch him. No suspects were located immediately at the area. Investigators secured the scene and began processing the home evidence. Early attention focused on the kitchen area and the utility leading to the garage. A knife from the home was identified as the likely weapon. It was found in the kitchen sink. Another knife was reported in a fiber content in a material from the nearby screen. A cut screen in the window of the garage identified a possible entry. However, investigators noted that the debris on the garbage floor and the screen was undisturbed. They also examined blood patterns through the family room and kitchen area. Analysts testified that the blood stain pattern was consistent with the movement after the initial injury occurred. Darlene was transported to a hospital for treatment. Medical personnel documented the wound on her neck and required surgical attention. It was bruising and others were cut. The severity and the nature of this injury became a central issue in the later proceedings. Within days, investigators began to question the aspects of the account provided. Attention turned towards inconsistency. They believed and existed between physical evidence and description of the intruder's attack. Among the issues raised were the lack of forced entry where the house was built, the position of the items, and interpretation of blood evidence. Approximately 5 days after the incident, a video recording at the graveyard of Devon and Damon was made during the described birthday observance for Devon. Portion of the video showed the family members spraying strings and appearing to engage in what the prosecutor later characterized as celebratory behavior. Other portions of those same recordings showed moments of solemn reflection and prayers. During trials, edited segments of the footage were presented to the jury, while the defense argued the full context was not initially shown. On June 18, 1996, Darlene Rutler was arrested and charged with capital murder in the connection with the death of Damon Rutler. Under Texas law, capital murder charges can carry the possibility of death penalty if convicted is secured. The case proceeded towards the trial, which began in the early 1997 due to extensive media coverage in Dallas area at the time. During the trial and prosecution, the prosecutor argued that the crime scene evidence did not support the theory of the unknown figure. They contended that the cut in the window had been staged and the knife used in the attack came from the house. Forensic analysis testified and regarded the blood stain pattern, suggesting that Darren's actions was incited and it was a staged account. The prosecution also introduced testimonies about the family financial issue. They presented evidence of a significant death insurance policy on their children. The theory suggested that the family prejudice may be played in a role into this event. Additionally, prosecutors emphasized that, as described in the inconsistencies in Darren's statements to law enforcement, they questioned the plausibility of the intruder entering, committing the attack, and leaving behind with no substantial trace of evidence. The defense presented different interpretations. Defense attorney argued that the investigation focused prematurely on Darren's and failed to fully pursue the possibility of other perpetrators. They contended that the cut on the screen was legitimate evidence of a forced entry, that the investigators did not adequately test the certain items that was collected at the scene. Medical experts from the defense testified that Darren's neck wound was serious and would have been life-threatening. They argued that the injury was inconsistent with the assault rather than self-inflicted wound. The defense also challenged the aspect of the bloodstream analysis and suggested that the scene was reconstructed presented by the prosecution relied on assumptions. Regarding the graveside video, defense attorney argued that the recording has been selectively edited for the courtroom presentation and the footage showed a broader emotional context, including grief and mourning. The jury deliberated over this for several days. On the 14th of February 1997, Darren Rutler was found guilty of capital murder in the death of Damon Rutler. During the sentences phase, in the jury, it determined that they should receive the death penalty. She was subsequently sentenced to death by lethal injection and was transferred to Mountain View Unit for the Women's Correctional Center in Texas. Following the conviction, Rothia and her legal team appealed during the process. Over the years, multiple appeals was filed, both state and federal courts. It issued the included claim of ineffective assistance of the counsel, challenges in forensic evidence, and requests for additional DNA testing. In the early 2000s, again in the later years, court authorized limited DNA testing on a certain item collected from the crime scene. Some tests were completed while the other remained pending due to legal proceedings and questions. In 2011, additional DNA analysis was conducted on the previously tested evidence, including the knife and the material. Reports indicated that some DNA profiles obtained were inconclusive or did not definitely identify an alternative suspect. In 2015, Texas court approved the further testing and additional items. The scope of the interpretations of these tests had been subjected to continued legal review. As of recent public record, some appeals and the aspects of his request and testing was completed, while legitimate over the items had continued. Throughout the appeal process for the general uphold and conviction, however, certain procedural matters have been revisited. The legal motion remained part of the ongoing review. Supporters from Rothias maintained that the unanswered question persisted regarding the crime scene, evidence and investigative decision. Others argued that the jury verdict was supported by evidence presented at the trial. The case has been examined in the books, documentary, television programs. It has also been referred in broader discussion about forensic science, media influence, criminal case, and the standards of capital conviction. Legal analysis also noted that the advancement in DNA testing technology led to renewed scrutiny in many cases in the 90s, including this one. Darren Rutler was remained on death row in Texas. Public record indicated that no execution date had been scheduled while appeal remained in motion, continuing the day of the court. The death of Damon and Devon Reta remained a central, undisputed tragedy in the case of the legal system, which was addressed as a matter of thorough trial. Multiple levels of appeal at the stage and court was weighed with procedural arguments, evidential statements, and constitutional claims. As of today, the case continues to generate discussion among legal professionals, journalists, and members of the public. The issue raised regarding forensic interpretation, investigative process, and appeal review remain part of a broader conversation about criminal justice system. The case remains to be discussed, debated, and reviewed through legal system. If you're interested in videos like this, crime stories, and also intriguing stories that are public, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.